Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending upon when you watch this. The time frame might change, and also the news about what we're going to talk about may change as well. Who am I? My name is Matthew Spear. I'm the host of Don't Unfriend Me. Good to have you here. We do politics, current events, world events, and a little seafaring story and reflecting on baby Jessica. Now, you might be going through your cortex and the memory portion of your brain and saying, baby Jessica, that sounds familiar. What could it possibly be? You might also be saying, Matt's voice is extremely deep because it's early in the morning. And I get that Mike Rowe voice at this time. I should always record at this time, but unfortunately, I don't get the chance to. It eludes me because I'm usually busy in the morning. And but hey, this morning we're together. Baby Jessica and submarines, what does it have to do with each other? And orcas. It's kind of a strange mixture of things, and it most certainly is, and I'm going to bring it all together. You may have heard that there were several billionaires that went in a submarine to go explore the Titanic. Now, the Titanic ranges certain portions almost 12,000 feet down. Some of the best technology, as far as you're concerned, from an unclassified standpoint, submarines can venture around 2,000 feet and operate in an effective way. Now, I'm not going to confirm or deny whether that's absolutely true, but just in the civilian sense, 2,000 feet is SOP and really pushes the limits for as far as you know as modern day submarines can go. Now, there's submersibles that obviously can go down to that 12,000 foot range, and there's been records set for a little bit deeper, a little bit more shallow, and it doesn't matter. And these are extremely expensive ventures. Now, there are quite a few billionaires, former divers, former military, a young man who is the son of one of the billionaires who are in this submersible that went to go traverse to the Titanic, and they spent $250,000 a piece. Now, I'm not going to go into the names, and I'm not going to go into a memorial service here and pronounce them gone. I will tell you I'm not an expert in diving in submersibles, even though I've done some diving in submersibles and also with self-contained underwater breathing apparatuses and other ways. And it doesn't make me an expert, but it gives me some knowledge in regards to the topic. And I will tell you that these individuals are in a lot of danger, obviously. And I think any layman would understand that. And when I say danger, it's not just from, dying and running out of oxygen or freezing to death or being crushed or all the other horrific ways that 12,000 feet can impose upon you. And when I say that, I take that in the most serious aspects possible, because this is not something that anyone would ever want to put themselves in. However, the six people who went on this trek knew exactly what they were getting involved in. And in fact, according to reports and interviews, there was one gentleman who was also a fellow adventurer who was extremely rich, and who said, I'm not going. The safety concerns I have with this vessel are high, and I believe that they've cut corners, and I'm not going on this. And, we hear this a lot from people who 9/11 or flights that have went down, or in situations where people have a clairvoyant moment or just an exceptional high awareness level, have decided to wave off. I know if you go back to the Ricky Valance and Buddy Holly story, they flipped a coin before the plane crash took place, who was going to go and who wasn't. Now, whether that's just an anecdotal recount of what supposedly happened or it was actually true, it doesn't matter. It makes for a story, and stories will come out about this event, no matter whether they are rescued or not. But the big thing that I'm taking some umbrage with, and why I'm not going into very specific details in regards to the names of the people, is because I'm hoping against hope that a miracle can happen. Now, I've lost brothers in arms and sisters in arms in the military, and under situations where the most simplest thing got somebody killed. And I'm also aware of situations and been involved in situations where the most complex situations, where there was no hope, people survived. This doesn't look good. And it doesn't look good because in this situation, they may as well be in Texas, in a random location, and are to be found by a Cessna. Now, there are reports that there were some banging noises in increments of 30 minutes that were non-geological events or no sonar events from any life form, but a mechanical event. And how they do that is sonar buoys on the top of the surface, and a P3 flies over and can listen in. This is the way they hunt subs at all various depths. Now, if they are as low as 12,000 feet, it would be hard for me to fathom, no pun intended, fathom meaning depths, it doesn't matter, just look it up, that the sound would be able to eclipse the depths that they're in. But once again, I've seen amazing sub-hunting and sub-tracking capabilities, and we have found torpedoes that have gone astray, or vehicles that have gone astray, or submersibles that have gone astray, and found with P3s, even when no noise is being made. So, I've seen some pretty amazing things. So it wouldn't surprise me, but the challenge of this and the metric tonnage from pulling something at that depth, they have a submersible that can reach that area quite readily, that has gone way past those depths of 12,000 feet. And they are trying to have a cable and a tow array where they can send this cable down and somehow attach it with robotic arms to the lost submersible and pull it up. The chances of this are few and far between. Like I said, just simply finding that is going to be next to impossible. You have to ask yourself the question, is this an electronic failure? Well, if it is an electronic failure, there has to be some scrubbing that takes place in a submersible craft, in the sense that CO2 is being, exhaled from these bodies in a small compartmental space. And there would be a CO2 scrubber on there, very similar to a rebreather, that repurposes the CO2, exfills the CO2, and then creates oxygen, or scrubs the levels of CO2 out of the oxygen and repurposes it for them to breathe. It's fairly common practice and something very simple, but it's not a passive thing without power. And if they are no longer have communications, well, then we would assume that they would have not remained submerged and popped up to the surface by now, and with their ballasts intact and risen from the depths. If it's an electrical issue, well, that would explain communication, and that would also explain the fact that their rebreathing or scrubbers wouldn't be working, and you would have a situation where they're going to run out of oxygen much sooner than Thursday at 5 a.m. is what everyone's predicting in the best case scenario. Now, in these situations, people are going to be stressed out. They're going to have a higher heart rate. They're going to be breathing sporadically. They're going to be moving around, excessively. They are in a cold, dark, deep environment with no light. And you can only imagine how terrifying that must be. If there is an emergency backup system to this and backup batteries, there's so many questions that we have that really there is no answer. And I hope I've painted a dark and dreary picture on purpose, because I want you to understand that there are people who have experienced this type of thing before. And I go back to baby Jessica, and if people may remember in 1987 when I was a young boy, that this baby fell down a well, and for a very long period of time and hours of anticipation for the worst or hope for the best, America paused. And we watched and we crawled around the tube and listened for even a modicum of information in order to ease our own troublesome worry, as our parents looked upon us watching this unfold and feeling much like I feel right now about these souls that are lost at sea. And lost is the operative word, hopefully not lost forever. And I'm reflective on this because that had a happy ending, even though, a lot of people felt that it was hopeless. And in this situation, it very well may be. I think about 9/11, all the trapped souls that were recovered, and the only few that were recovered from 9/11, as 2 buildings fell upon all of those people, and how tremendously sad and scary that must have been for obviously the loved ones, but the people trapped and who weren't found. And we all paused, and we took time out of our lives to recognize how impactful and profound this moment was in our history, whether it was a baby in a well or whether it was children who were spelunking in caves and ultimately had to be rescued by divers. But I do remember hoping and praying against hope that this would be a outcome that would be happy. Something's changed in our country. And people talk about guns and they talk about, genders and they talk about politics. There is a lack of compassion. And don't get me wrong, I have a very dark sense of humor, and I move through tragedy differently than other people. But there's a difference between coping mechanisms and just being an asshole. And I wish I could put I thought of several other words that would be emphatic enough to help people understand how I feel about this. And that word just truly really was able to surmise how I feel in an effective and in a manner that established brevity. I'm seeing posts all over Facebook about celebration that billionaires are dead. And that has not been confirmed. And although I recognize your trepidation of this possibly having a good outcome, I also recognize your pessimism and negativity around the things that are not important about someone's economic status. These are sons, these are our fathers, these are grandfathers, these are children. Where has our compassion gone? There's jokes being made about the Titanic and people, a submersible with a light on looking at the Titanic and saying, "Catch, can you only imagine how these people felt?" And then bzz, in the comic, and it goes dark and it says, "Well, we don't have to imagine anymore." I think there's a time and place for humor. I think there's a time and place on reflection. And if this is how you cope or this is how you process, I can understand. And I think there's nothing wrong with humor in situations that are dire. But I would never make a joke about somebody who is in ICU. I would never make a joke about somebody who, like Ronald Reagan, there was an assassination attempt. You have to wait for the outcome because there's people who are literally hanging on every word who have souls, who have some microcosm of respect for human life left. And in this age of Grand Theft Auto, where people run over hookers and shoot people for fun, and we go into movie theaters and destroy families and destroy innocents, and people who have no families are too young to have a family, in a place where we hope for our political rivals to be imprisoned simply because that is the norm and the only way to get some comeuppance over one over the other, because true change or true accountability is never here. So we celebrate the mundane and we celebrate the dark when truly we should be coming together and praying against every form of despair for these lives that are trapped. I don't think any of them are thinking about money right now. I don't think they're thinking about the stock exchange or if they got a good ROI on that investment this quarter. I don't think the boy that's there, who is a young man, is thinking about Grand Theft Auto or thinking about who he's going to vote for in 2024 as he will be 18 years old. I think he's thinking that he hasn't done anything. And I think those billionaires or men are thinking that they wish they could do more, or they wish they would have said more, or they wish they had one more moment with the people in their lives who were more important than any adventure to see Titanic or to climb the Alps or go to Mars. I don't think they're thinking that people might be making fun of the situation. I don't think they're thinking about anything other than rescue and how cold and how dark this tomb that they are in is. I think it's a metaphor about how we are failing as a society. And it makes me reflect upon myself as I saw a few of these comments. I saw a few of these cartoons and said, and chuckled to myself and stopped and said, no, that's not right. It's not funny. There is a time and a place. And when people say it's too soon, I don't think they mean anything about time. I think what they're truly trying to say is that it's not that it's too soon. It lacks compassion. It lacks a human element. And there will be a time and a place to hold people accountable. There will be a time and a place to investigate. There will be a time and a place to lament the intelligence or stupidity of this entire event. But right now, humanity should be together. It doesn't matter what country you're from, what color you are, whether you're rich or poor, whether you're white or black. It doesn't matter. There are human beings who are most assuredly going through something devastating and terrible. And I would ask you to look at yourself and say, are you in a better position than they are? And if you are, then you can simply take a moment and maybe put together a prayer or take a moment and reflect on your own existence, because most assuredly, these six are not able to. They are overcome with fear. They are overcome with desperation. And the only thing they want is to have somebody tap back on the hull of that vehicle and let them know that they're there. I want you to imagine how difficult that must be. There is an audio clip going around of the CEO of the company talking about how he doesn't want to hire older white men. And of course, people on the right are using this, just like the people on the left are using terms like eat the rich and having an orca eat the guys in the sub, because the only thing they care about is money. And their stasis in life is defined by the money they don't have. And then Republicans are using this as a political hit job to say that the company was woke. And somehow this means that 6 people should die because the CEO is woke. I guess the message I would give to the CEO who said that he wouldn't hire older white guys because they were unable to be motivated or inspired or inspirational is I think there's a bunch of older white guys and black girls and Hispanic girls and transgenders and gays and lesbians, and it doesn't matter which color, race, sexual disposition, or creed that they are, who are working fervently to rescue these passengers. They're in the Coast Guard, they're in the Navy, they're submariners, they're expeditionaries. All over the world are coming. And just like I saw in Houston during Hurricane Harvey, it didn't matter which color you were, it didn't matter what money you had or didn't have. Everybody came together. Looting wasn't an option. Helping anyone who had anything that floated went out and tried to save lives. I guess when we feel powerless, we do the thing that comes most easily. And I would challenge us to do the thing that's hard, which is to take a moment and put yourselves in the shoes of these desperate and lonely human beings and try to shed the materialism and the depravity of not having any feelings other than enjoying what's going on. That has to give us pause. And this may be preachy and maybe not as scientific or current event as you want, but we only have a limited amount of time left to truly hope. And I think we should all spend that time, because very soon we're going to have an exuberant and probably infinite amount of time to wonder what happened to these men, because we may never know the amount of cost and time it will take to find this vessel, whether it strayed off course, whether it lost its lights and it's still propelling somewhere into the ether in the expanse. May never know. Now, you may be looking at my shirt and saying, how can you wear a shirt like that, Matt? Matt, wait a second. I just listened to everything you just said. Now I just looked at your shirt and it says AR-15 beats skateboard. Is that in regards to Kyle Rittenhouse? Yes, it is. Absolutely. I told you when we first started that I have a dark sense of humor as well. And yes, this points out the stupidity of the people involved in the event with Kyle Rittenhouse and the protests that took place. I am completely aware that this shirt is not sensitive. However, this wasn't made the day of. This wasn't made during. This was made after the trial, and it doesn't talk about dead people. It doesn't celebrate that. What it says is, this was stupid. That if you think a skateboard is going to work against an AR-15 when you were not being attacked, you were not being shot at, and this person was not letting off rounds just to go ahead and take people out, as we've seen all over the United States, and it was obvious. He was defending himself against attack, and you kept pursuing him, you're going to lose. There is nothing wrong with questioning the narrative. There is something wrong with creating it. I want us to think about that. Or don't. It's up to you. You can make all the jokes you want. It's a free country. You can have the right to be compassionate. You have the right to be caring. You have the right to be reflective. And you also, in this great country of ours, have the right to be an asshole. Thanks for watching the Don't Unfriend Me Show. My name is Matthew Spear. It's good to have you here. Thanks for stopping by. Do me a favor. If you would go to thedumbshow.com and you can take a look at some of the shirts that you can get, some hats, some coffee, all that type of stuff. 10% goes back to veterans, and you can also save 10% by using code DUM10, DUM10, the initials of the show. I will be on tonight with Olivia and myself live Wednesday. I think Leroy will be there as well. We can't wait to see you. Stop on by, say hello, and listen to this message as we go out with...
I'm David Boreanaz with the Cast of SEAL team, and we have an important message for returning vets.
We want you to know if you're struggling to cope, there's help and it's just a phone call away.
The Veterans Crisis Line is staffed with experienced professionals who know your struggles.
There's no greater sacrifice in service to our country. We're able to enjoy our freedoms because of it.
Your service is important. You are important.
For vets and their families, the Veterans Crisis Line is here to help 24 hours a day. Please call